I thought I understood betrayal, but nothing prepared me for the sheer, jaw-dropping audacity of a man who, after freeloading in my home for months, tried to charge me rent. That's when I knew he had to go, and I would make sure he regretted every single moment. My life used to be pretty simple. I'm just 27, and I work in IT. My apartment is nothing fancy, just a cozy two-bedroom in a quiet part of the city, but it was mine. The lease, at least, was in my name. I've been there almost 2 years, living a pretty chill life. Work, gym, Netflix, the occasional night out. I love my peace and quiet. I pay my bills on time, even fold my laundry right out of the dryer. Yeah, I'm that person. My life was steady, maybe even a little boring, until one night my roommate's guest turned everything upside down. Let me rewind a bit. I got the apartment after a really messy breakup. We had to divide everything, furniture, playlists, even our friends. I just want a clean slate, and this place was perfect. Decent kitchen, a little balcony that caught the sunrise. I moved in solo, but after about 6 months, the rent started feeling like a beast, especially with the economy. So, I decided to look for a roommate. That's where Marissa came in. She was 25, studying for her nursing boards. Seemed totally normal during our first meet. She liked quiet nights, paid her share on time, and honestly, she made a killer pesto pasta. We got along fine. We weren't besties sharing secrets, but it was comfortable. She moved in that spring, and for the first few months, everything was smooth sailing. Then, Alex arrived. I met him one Saturday afternoon. I was in the middle of my usual deep cleaning routine, mop in hand, when I walked into the living room. Marissa was there, scrolling on her phone, and next to her was this guy I'd never seen before. Tall, smug-looking, wearing one of those "I paused my game to be here" graphic tees. "Oh, hey," she said, like I wasn't holding a mop and glaring at the dust bunnies. "This is Alex, my boyfriend." Alex gave me a quick, curt nod, didn't even bother to stand or say anything. "Hi," I replied, a little surprised she hadn't mentioned seeing anyone. "Is he staying for dinner?" "He's just crashing for the night," she said quickly. "His place is getting fumigated. One night, max." I shrugged. "Not my business, right?" "Cool," I said, and went back to vacuuming. He, meanwhile, proceeded to put his feet up on my coffee table. Strike one. That one night stretched into 2, then 4, then 10. After a week, I tried to be casual about it. "Hey, Marissa, is Alex still having issues at his place?" She hesitated. "Yeah, kind of. He might need a few more days." A few more days became indefinite. By the end of week 3, his toothbrush was in our bathroom, his socks were on the hallway floor, and his laptop charger was permanently plugged into the wall near the dining table. I couldn't ignore it anymore. I confronted her again, more directly this time. "Marissa, I need to know, how long is Alex planning to stay?" She looked up from her textbook, visibly annoyed. I don't know, Jess. He doesn't have a place right now. His lease ended, and he's between jobs. What do you want me to do? Kick into the curb. I want him to contribute to rent if he's going to live here, I said, keeping my voice calm but firm. Or at least utilities. He's using water, electricity, and I've noticed the groceries are disappearing faster than usual. She rolled her eyes. He's going through a lot right now. You could be a little more understanding. That was the first real crack in our roommate relationship. But I didn't push it. Not yet. I figured if he was truly between leases, maybe he'd be gone soon. Maybe this was just a rough patch. I didn't want to be heartless. But over the next few weeks, it became crystal clear Alex had no intention of leaving. He wasn't job hunting. He wasn't apartment shopping. He was home. My home. He started leaving his dishes in the sink. He took my almond milk and drank straight from the carton. He hogged the bathroom in the mornings and had the audacity to leave the toilet seat up. And if that wasn't enough, one day I came home to find he'd rearranged the entire living room without asking either of us. The couch was against a different wall, my reading lamp was missing, and there was a gaming chair in the corner that absolutely clashed with everything. What happened here? I asked, stunned. Alex, holding a controller, barely looked up. I optimized the layout. Better for the TV angle. I blinked. You what? Relax, he said, not even making eye contact. It's a shared space. I stood there, seething. Marissa tried to smooth things over. You just move a few things, Jess. We can put them back if it bothers you. It's not about the furniture. I snapped. It's the fact that he thinks he can waltz in and start running the place without so much as a conversation. Alex, ever the charmer, scoffed. Maybe if you weren't so uptight, you'd see it looks better this way. That was the moment. I wasn't just irritated anymore. I was on a mission. But I stayed quiet. I observed. I waited. Because if there's one thing working in IT has taught me, it's that documentation is power. And if this was going to end in confrontation, I wanted receipts. So I started keeping a record. Every day Alex stayed. Every meal he consumed. Every utility spike. Every passive-aggressive comment. Every item of mine he used without asking. I took photos, wrote timestamps, tracked everything. It might sound obsessive, but I knew something was coming. I just didn't know when. And then, exactly 3 months from the day he first crashed for a night, the absurd happened. I came home after work, kicked off my shoes, and found a manila envelope on the counter with my name on it. Inside, a printed document titled Shared Household Contribution Agreement. It was from Alex. I swear, I'm not making this up. The document, clearly typed by him and signed only by him, outlined how, since I shared the space with 2 individuals, I should now be paying 1/3 of the rent instead of half. It went on to say that he would begin collecting from me at the start of next month, and that I should please have my portion ready in cash or transfer. He had even added his Venmo at the bottom. I stared at it, blinking, trying to process the sheer, unmitigated audacity of this man. I took the paper, walked into the living room where he was, what else? Playing video games, and held it up. What is this? He didn't pause the game. Rent adjustment. Fair's fair. Fair's fair. I repeated, my voice dangerously calm. You don't even live here legally. Your name's not on the lease. You've been freeloading for 3 months, and now you think I owe you money. He finally put the controller down and turned to me, smug as ever. Look, Jess, I've been contributing. I cleaned the bathroom last week, and I reorganized the living room. If anything, you owe me. That was it. I didn't yell. I didn't throw things. I just smiled. Thanks for the clarification, I said, and walked away. Because now I had everything I needed. The next day, I drafted something of my own. Not a passive-aggressive note. Not a confrontation. Something a little more formal. And it had teeth. But I'll get to that, because first, I had to pay someone a visit. The next morning, I took a personal day from work. Not out of stress, surprisingly. I was weirdly energized, like someone had flipped a switch. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming my home, my life. And step 1 meant paying a little visit to my landlord. Quick side note, my landlord, Mr. Gilman, is in his late 60s. He runs a few small properties, and he's basically allergic to technology. Think handwritten receipts, landline phone, a thick accent, and a suit that looks like it was tailored during the Nixon administration. But he's fair, old school, and more importantly, by the book. I showed up at his office unannounced, carrying a folder. Inside were my notes, printed photos, screenshots of every Venmo request, every group text, and a list of dates. He was in the middle of eating a sandwich when I walked in. Jessica, he said, wiping mayo off his tie. You okay? You don't usually come by in person. I have a problem, I said, sitting down across from him. And I think you're going to want to know about it. I laid out everything. Who Alex was, how long he'd been there, that he wasn't on the lease, that he'd never applied, that he had even started demanding rent from me. Gilman's eyebrows slowly climbed toward his hairline as I flipped page after page. He's an unauthorized occupant, I said. Technically, I could be in violation of my lease for letting him stay. You could, he nodded slowly. But if you're not the one letting him stay, then it's not on you. Exactly, I said. I want him out. I want both of them out. He leaned back in his creaky leather chair and tapped the folder. You documented all this yourself? Every bit. Gilman whistled softly. You make a good property manager. All right, I'll serve an official notice, but you'll have to give me a couple days. I don't mind, I said, a mischievous glint in my eye. But I'd like to follow it up with something more dramatic. He raised an eyebrow. What are you thinking? That's when I laid out my twist. It wasn't illegal. It wasn't cruel. But it would sting. Gilman chuckled the entire time I explained it. At one point, he muttered, "Remind me never to get on your bad side." I left his office that day with a bounce in my step. But that was just part of it. Back at home, things were as obnoxious as ever. Alex had taken to calling himself the man of the house, like we were living in some kind of 1950s sitcom. I caught him opening my Amazon packages once, and when I confronted him, he just said, "Oh, relax, I thought it was for the apartment." Marissa just shrugged and said he didn't mean anything by it. Meanwhile, I had to relabel my leftovers and hide my oat milk like I was back in college. Then came the real kicker. One night, I walked into the kitchen to find my favorite mug, a ceramic blue one I got from a craft fair, shattered in the sink. Alex was at the table eating cereal. "Did you break my mug?" He didn't even flinch. "Yeah, my bad. Slipped when I was rinsing it." I stared at him. "That was mine. You didn't even say anything." He shrugged. "It's just a mug." I think that moment, more than anything else, was when I stopped seeing Alex as a parasite and started seeing him as a virus. One that needed to be removed. Carefully, with precision, and gloves. 2 days later, Mr. Gilman delivered the official notice. A formal cure or quit letter addressed to Marissa only, stating that she had 10 days to remove any unauthorized occupants or face termination of tenancy. It was taped right to the front door. I wasn't home when they saw it, but I got a flurry of texts from Marissa. "What is wrong with you? Did you go behind my back to the landlord, Jess? Seriously, we could have talked." I didn't reply. I waited until I got home. When I walked through the door that evening, the atmosphere was thick. Marissa was pacing the hallway, clearly fuming. Alex was slumped on the couch, arms crossed. "You went to the landlord," Marissa snapped, stepping in front of me, without even talking to me. "I did talk to you," I said calmly, hanging up my coat. "Multiple times. You just ignored me. So, you're getting me evicted?" "No," I said. "You're getting yourself evicted. He's not on the lease. That's your problem." Alex scoffed. "You're being a child." "No," I said, turning to him. "You've been squatting in my home for 3 months. You've cost me money, time, and peace. And now you're pretending you have some legal claim to my space." "I do contribute," he shot back. "I help keep things running." "You broke my mug and rearranged my furniture," I said. "That's not contribution. That's invasion." "I'll talk to Gilman," Marissa said, crossing her arms. "He'll understand." "You can try," I said, walking past them. "But you've got 8 days now." They didn't speak to me for the rest of the night, which was fine, because while they were sulking and scrambling, I was preparing the second half of my plan. You see, I hadn't just spoken to the landlord. I'd also been making a few legal inquiries of my own. Turns out, there's a little-known clause in our lease about interference with quiet enjoyment of the premises. It's usually buried in legalese, but it basically says if someone significantly disrupts your ability to live peacefully in your home, the landlord must take action, or you can take legal steps of your own. And I wasn't just planning to use it, I was planning to weaponize it. But before I pulled that trigger, I had one more trick up my sleeve. It was the kind of move you save for when the opponent thinks they've still got a fighting chance. The kind that ends conversations, shifts power. And it involved a formal envelope, a letterhead, and a signature that would make both of them panic. Because if they thought the landlord notice was bad, they hadn't seen anything yet. It wasn't just about getting them out. I wanted this to be memorable. I wanted them to feel every ounce of their entitled behavior come back like a boomerang. That's when I started crafting my second weapon, one that had nothing to do with the landlord and everything to do with leverage. Now, Let me explain something about Alex. This man was loud about how the system was broken and how people who worked 9 to 5s were slaves to the machine. He said this, by the way, while using his dad's old Amex card to buy gaming chairs and Uber Eats. The man lived in a constant state of hypocritical delusion, and that's where I found my opening. A couple of weeks into his stay, I noticed he had packages coming in regularly under Marissa's name, but the stuff wasn't hers. I once saw him open a small box with a label from some dropshipping company. When I asked casually, he told me he was testing a side hustle. Then one day, curiosity got the better of me, and I did a little digital digging. I searched the return address on one of his packages and found it linked to a low-quality eBay storefront selling knockoff electronics, shipped from our exact address. He was running a whole shady resale operation right under my nose, using our apartment as a distribution hub. I couldn't believe it. I didn't confront him. Not yet. Instead, I started documenting this too. Photos of packages, screenshots of the store, delivery logs, even video from our hallway camera. We had a Ring peephole viewer because, ironically, Marissa wanted to feel safer when we first moved in. Then, I reached out to an acquaintance of mine. Let's call her Priya. She works in compliance for a major online retail platform. I didn't ask her to do anything shady, just for some general insight into how these cases were handled. She told me if he was shipping out faulty or counterfeit items, and I had proof he was doing it from our address, it could be reported under a consumer fraud claim. Even if I didn't pursue anything legally, just the threat of reporting it could be enough to light a fire under him. So I drafted a formal letter. Not from me, from a consumer protection attorney. I used a real template, thank you, legal Reddit, and inserted all the necessary phrasing. Unauthorized business activity, potential fraud, pending consumer complaint, federal reporting agency, and my personal favorite, cease and desist demand pending investigation. I printed it on heavy linen paper, inserted it into an envelope with a typed address, no return name, just an official-looking letterhead with a mock legal firm name I generated online. Then I waited. The next morning, I made sure to leave the envelope on the kitchen counter, right where Alex would find it. I even placed it on top of his cereal box, so he'd have no choice but to pick it up. And no, he picked it up. I was sitting in my room with the door cracked when I heard it. The shuffle of the envelope. The pause. Then, the tearing of paper. A beat of silence. Then what is this? He stomped down the hallway toward Marissa's room. I peeked just slightly out and saw him holding the letter, face pale. "They're investigating me," he hissed. Marissa sounded half asleep. "What are you talking about?" "This. Some law office sent a letter. Says I'm being reported for fraud. Did you tell someone about the store?" Marissa mumbled something, and I couldn't hear her reply, but the panic had started. It was setting in. I heard Alex storming back and forth for an hour after that, doors opening and closing. He was on the phone, trying to get someone, anyone, to explain what was going on. The best part? He still didn't know I was behind it. By that evening, he was in full paranoia mode. He'd shoved all his packages into black trash bags and was muttering something about needing to find a P.O. box. I stayed in my room, pretending to work, sipping my tea, and listening to the chaos. But that's when things really started to crack. Because instead of Marissa backing him up, I started noticing tension between them. She was annoyed, tired, defensive. She started spending more time in her room. She even asked me if I'd mind if she hosted a quiet night with some friends in the living room, because she needed a break from the testosterone. I told her I'd be out that night, and she actually smiled. Alex didn't like that. I think he could tell the walls were closing in. His little kingdom of entitlement was crumbling, and he had nowhere else to go. I overheard him asking Marissa if they could just move somewhere new and start over, like they were on the run from the law. She told him to calm down. Then he dropped this gem. "She's probably the one who called the lawyer." Silence. Then, "You think Jess did this?" "Alex," she said. "She's petty enough." Marissa sighed. "Not petty. She's organized. There's a difference." That one made me laugh under my breath. But here's where things took a turn I wasn't expecting. The next morning, I walked into the kitchen and found Marissa alone. No Alex in sight. She was staring into her coffee like it had told her bad news. She looked up at me and said quietly, "I think he's going to do something stupid." I didn't respond, just waited. She looked down at the mug again. "He's talking about getting you kicked out now." Now I was interested. "Really?" I said. "And how's he planning to do that?" "I don't know," she said, "but he mentioned calling the landlord. Said he has proof that you've been harassing him and creating a hostile environment." That was when I realized this might go deeper than a revenge plan. Alex wasn't just a freeloader anymore. He was strategizing, but so was I. I nodded slowly. "Thanks for telling me," I said, my tone neutral. She looked up. "I didn't say it for you," she said. "I said it because I don't want to be homeless." And with that, she left the room. Which brings me to now. Alex had no idea I was 2 steps ahead. That I had everything, from the roommate agreement to the unauthorized business to audio recordings of his threats, ready to go. He thought he was in control. He was wrong. The day everything came to a head, the apartment was unnaturally quiet. The kind of quiet that hums in your ears. You could feel it, like the pressure before a storm. Marissa had been avoiding eye contact for days. Alex, meanwhile, was riding the high of what he thought was a genius plan, his supposed evidence against me. He was pacing around the apartment like he'd already won, smirking, making himself eggs with my olive oil, sitting in my chair like a king waiting to claim land he didn't own. He had no idea he was already checkmated. The night before, I overheard him on the phone in the hallway, talking just loud enough for me to hear. He wanted me to hear it. That faux confidence again, thick and clumsy like everything else he did. "She's done," he'd said. "I've got a recording of her threatening me. I'm sending it to the landlord in the morning." He was talking about a conversation where I told him calmly that if he wasn't out by the 15th, I'd escalate it legally. Apparently, that counted as a threat. Now, he was really counting on that little bluff. Let him. The next morning, 11 a.m. sharp, Mr. Gilman knocked on the door. I opened it like I'd been expecting royalty, offered him coffee, walked him into the kitchen. He declined, of course. He always declined. A minute later, Alex sauntered in, posture cocky, shirt half-tucked. He looked at Gilman like he was a panelist on some reality show. "Glad you could make it," he said. "We got some things to sort out." Mr. Gilman stared at him for half a beat longer than was polite, then turned to me. "You said you had something to show me?" I did. I pulled out the folder I've been working on for weeks. It was thick, color-coded, and thudded when I dropped it on the table. Inside, the eBay storefront Alex was running from our address, product photos, tracking numbers, photos of the boxes piled in our living room, delivery schedules, video stills from the hallway camera of him packaging items, screenshots of messages where he called himself a small business owner, and best of all, a printed list of all the names and aliases he'd used to register accounts, some tied directly to our unit's mailing address. But that wasn't the only thing in the folder. Behind it, I'd also added a few personal touches, a copy of the fake legal letter I'd crafted weeks ago, the one that sent Alex into a tailspin, a timeline of all 3 months he had lived there rent-free, and a signed witness statement, yes, signed, from Marissa, admitting he'd been living there full-time and had been increasingly aggressive. Gilman read through it all without saying a word. Occasionally, he grunted. Once he squinted and muttered, "Jesus." Alex stood there, arms crossed, trying to read upside down. "She's manipulating this whole thing," he blurted. "She's been hostile since day one. I recorded her threatening me. I've got proof too." Gilman closed the folder and looked at him. "You're not on the lease," he said flatly. "You're not authorized to live here. You're not even a tenant. You've been running a business out of my property without permission. That alone is grounds for immediate removal." Alex's smirk twitched, but Gilman raised his hand. "If you're not gone by noon tomorrow, I'll file an unlawful detainer and pursue damages that'll be on your record. Trust me, it'll follow you. And good luck explaining that to any landlord in the city." Alex's jaw clenched, but he didn't say anything. He just stood there, speechless. I don't think he'd ever been told no by someone who could enforce it before. Gilman stood up, gave me a small nod. I'll expect confirmation tomorrow. Then he left. The moment the door closed behind him, Alex turned to me, but whatever angry retort he had planned died in his throat. I didn't say a word, just raised my coffee mug, the one he hadn't broken, and took a sip. Marissa didn't come out of her room. I don't know if she was ashamed or scared or just didn't want to face either of us. But that night, I heard them arguing. Not just bickering, arguing. Him yelling, her sobbing. It went on for over an hour. Something about betrayal. Something about, you let her do this. The next morning, Alex was gone. No goodbye. No apology. No passive-aggressive note. Just gone. He left behind a half-filled trash bag, a broken phone charger, and a carton of almond milk I'd marked with my name weeks ago. Fitting. Marissa stayed another few weeks. She tried, in her own awkward way, to patch things up. Apologized once, said she didn't know it would get so toxic that she thought he'd grow out of it. I told her I hoped she learned something from it. She didn't answer. 3 weeks later, she packed up and left quietly. No drama. She texted me a week after that, asking if I could mail her a stack of nursing books she'd left behind. I didn't reply. These days, it's just me again. The apartment is quiet. Still clean. There's no one gaming at 2 a.m. with the volume blasting. No weird packages. No power struggles over the thermostat or whose milk is in the fridge. Just me, my playlist, and my sunlight on the balcony. And I sleep better. Sometimes I wonder what Alex is doing now. Probably trying to find a new couch to live on. Maybe telling someone else how he was wronged. Painting himself as the victim. It doesn't really matter. Some lessons you just have to learn the hard way. And sometimes you have to be the one to teach them.